The night before my graduation, my dad took my cap and gown away and said, "You don't deserve to walk across that stage, your brother does." I never got to graduate. I never went back home. Last week, someone from that house found me. I'm 28 now, but this goes back to when I was 18, living in a small town in the Midwest. Back then, it was me, my younger brother, 16 at the time, my dad, and my stepmom. My mom passed when I was 10, and ever since, my dad had been kind of cold with me. Like, I became the constant reminder of what he lost. Meanwhile, my brother, let's call him Dylan, was the golden child. The kid who could do no wrong, even though he was constantly screwing up. I worked my ass off in high school. Honor roll every semester, AP classes, working part-time at a grocery store to save up for community college. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but I showed up. I grinded. I wanted out of that house more than anything. Graduation was my ticket. It wasn't just about walking across that stage. It was about proving to myself that I made it, that all the nights I stayed up studying while my dad yelled at me to shut off the damn light weren't for nothing. But Dylan, he barely went to class. He skipped, got into fights, and was caught smoking weed on school grounds twice. Still, my dad would look at him like he was this misunderstood genius. He'd say, "He just needs the right push." And for me, it was always, "Why can't you be more like your brother? You think you're better than him just cause you get good grades." So fast forward to the night before graduation. I had my cap and gown hanging up on my closet door. I had laid out the clothes I was going to wear underneath. It felt surreal. Like, tomorrow I'd finally walk across that stage, shake the principal's hand, and get that diploma. My stepmom even promised she'd take a picture of me, which she'd never offered before. But then, around 11 p.m., my dad barges into my room. No knock, nothing. He's drunk, beer in one hand, his face red. He points at my cap and gown and goes, "You don't deserve this." I froze, thinking I misheard. But then he grabs it off the hanger and says, "Your brother should be walking tomorrow, not you." I remember saying, "Dad, Dylan didn't even pass. He's not graduating." And my dad just smirked. "Doesn't matter. You don't deserve it either. You think you're some kind of man cause you're leaving us? You think you're better than this family?" I begged him. I mean, literally begged, hands shaking, voice cracking, for him to give it back. I said, "Please, Dad, just let me have this one thing." But he shoved me against the wall and said, "You'll live. Dylan needs this more than you ever will." Then he walked out with it. The next morning, Dylan came downstairs wearing my cap and gown. It hung loose on him, since he was smaller, but my dad acted like it was the proudest moment of his life. He drove him to the ceremony, even though Dylan wasn't graduating. Meanwhile, I sat in my room, staring at the empty hanger. I never walked. My name was called, but no one stood up. I later found out my stepmom lied to the school and said I was sick. That day broke something in me. It wasn't just the graduation, it was the realization that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. I packed a bag that night. Just some clothes, my phone charger, and the little bit of cash I had saved from work. I didn't even say goodbye. I took a Greyhound bus out of town and never looked back. For years, I didn't talk to them. No calls, no visits. I went to community college on my own dime, worked 3 jobs, crashed on couches, and built a life without them. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. I clawed my way into stability, brick by brick, far away from that house and those people. And then, last week, I get a message on Facebook from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, just a name. It said, "I need to talk to you. It's about your dad. Please." I almost ignored it, but curiosity ate at me. I clicked on the profile. It was my stepmom, the same woman who smiled at Dylan in my gown while I rotted upstairs. That message pulled me back into a world I swore I'd never revisit. And now, I'm sitting here debating whether to reply, because part of me still feels like that 18-year-old kid begging for his cap and gown back, and part of me is the man who built a life without them. I don't know which version of me wins this time. When I saw that message from my stepmom, my first instinct was to block her. Like, no hesitation. Just shut the door before it even opened. Because honestly, I've spent the last decade pretending those people didn't exist. And it worked. Or at least, I convinced myself it worked. But here's the thing. Trauma doesn't just go away. You can move states, change your number, build a new life. But there's still that version of you that sits in the back of your mind, waiting. The kid who never got to graduate. And the second I saw her name pop up, That kid woke up. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the message for hours, my phone just sitting on the table while I paced around my apartment. It's about your dad. That line stuck with me. 1,000 scenarios ran through my head. Maybe he was dying. Maybe he was broke. Maybe he wanted forgiveness. Every version made my stomach twist. Finally, around midnight, I typed back one word. What? She responded almost instantly, like she'd been waiting by her phone. He's sick. It's bad. We don't know how long. I didn't reply. I threw my phone on the couch and sat there in silence. Sick. The man who ripped the one thing I worked for out of my hands, who made sure I left that house feeling worthless. Now he's sick, and suddenly I'm supposed to care? The next day, I woke up to another message. He wants to see you. Please. He's asking for you. And I don't know why, but that one hit harder. Because my dad, he never asked for me. He demanded. He ordered. He belittled. But asking, that wasn't in his vocabulary. I didn't answer for 3 days. I went to work, came home, went through the motions, but my brain was stuck in that house, replaying everything. The night of graduation, the fights, the way he looked at Dylan like he was some chosen one while I was just extra. By day 4, she sent me an address. If you decide to come, no pressure, which was funny because it felt like the heaviest pressure of my life. I called one of my closest friends. Let's call him Marcus. He's been like a brother to me since college. One of the first people I ever told the full story to. I asked him straight up, am I crazy for even thinking about going back? Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. He said, you're not crazy, but don't go there looking for something you'll never get. Closure isn't a guarantee. Sometimes it's just a fancy word for reopening old wounds. That stuck with me, because he was right. I wasn't going to walk into that house and suddenly get the apology I deserved. I wasn't going to see my dad break down crying, telling me he was wrong all these years. That's not how men like him operate. But at the same time, part of me wanted to see for myself, to look him in the eye and know, without a doubt, that I was done. So I drove back. 10 years since I'd last been in that town, and my chest felt tight the whole way. I parked 2 blocks from the house because I couldn't bring myself to pull right up to it. Just sat there in my car for 15 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. When I finally walked up, it was surreal. Same peeling paint on the porch, same broken screen door, same smell of stale cigarettes leaking out the windows. It was like stepping into a time capsule of everything I ran from. My stepmom opened the door. She looked older, worn down, but her face lit up like she was relieved I even showed. Thank you for coming, she said, like I had just done her some huge favor. Inside, the house hadn't changed much. Same sagging couch, same yellowed walls. And then I saw him, my dad, lying in a recliner with a blanket pulled up to his chest, oxygen tube in his nose. He looked small, smaller than I ever remembered, like the anger that once filled him had burned him hollow. He looked at me and smiled, an actual smile, and said, you came. And in that moment, I didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, disbelief, all of it hit at once. Because yeah, I came. But not for him. I came for me. To finally see if facing him would put those ghosts to rest. But instead of closure, all I felt was rage bubbling back up. Because the first memory that flashed in my head wasn't him smiling now. It was him holding my cap and gown and saying, you don't deserve this. I didn't sit down. I just stood there, staring at him, and all I could say was, why now? After everything, why the hell now? He coughed, shifted in his chair, and said, because I don't have much time. And you're still my son. That word, son, landed like a punch in the gut. Because for years, I wasn't his son. I was the kid he blamed. The kid who wasn't Dylan. The kid who didn't deserve to walk. And hearing him claim me now, when it was convenient, it lit a fire in me I didn't even know was still there. I stood there in the living room, the air heavy with that old cigarette stench and the faint hiss of his oxygen machine. My stepmom had retreated into the kitchen, probably to give us space. Or maybe because she knew what was about to come wasn't going to be pretty. He stared at me like he expected me to sit down, like this was some family reunion moment. But I didn't move. My legs locked into place, like if I sat, I'd be giving him something he didn't earn. You're still my son, he repeated, voice gravelly, weaker than I remembered. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. This man spent a decade making sure I never felt like his son. He erased me every chance he got. And now, when death's got him cornered, Suddenly the word comes easy? You don't get to say that, I snapped. My voice cracked, but not from weakness. From everything I'd buried. You had 18 years to say that. You had graduation night to say that. You had the night I left this house with nothing but a backpack. And you said nothing. He shifted uncomfortably, eyes dropping to the floor. For the first time, he didn't look like the man who towered over me with a beer in his hand. He looked like someone who realized he'd lost. I made mistakes, he muttered. Mistakes. I laughed again, harsher this time. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. What you did wasn't a mistake. You chose Dylan every single time. You let him wear my cap and gown, Dad. Do you even remember that? Do you remember looking me in the face and telling me I didn't deserve to walk across that stage? His lips pressed tight. He didn't answer. That was my moment. I continued, my voice shaking now. And you took it from me. You took everything from me. Do you know what it's like to sit in your room while the entire school is at graduation? To hear your classmates' names being called, wondering if anyone noticed when yours came up and no one stood? Do you know what it's like to pack a bag at 18 because home doesn't feel like home anymore? Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not in front of him. I worked my ass off. I said, quieter now, but sharper. Every test, every late-night shift, every time you told me I was nothing, I pushed through it. And when I finally had something to show for it, you ripped it out of my hands. Finally, he looked at me again. His eyes were wet, glossy. I couldn't tell if it was regret or just fear of dying. I thought. He started, then trailed off. His voice was hoarse, like every word cost him. I thought Dylan needed it more. He was struggling. I thought if I gave him that, I don't know, save him. Save him, I barked. From what consequences? Responsibility? You didn't save him, Dad. You ruined him. You handed him everything and taught him nothing. And you punished me for being the one who tried. You broke me to protect him. Silence. Just the wheeze of the machine. And then I said what had been festering inside me for years. You didn't want me to succeed, did you? Because if I made it out, it meant you had to face the fact that you failed. And you couldn't stomach that. So you tore me down instead. His face crumpled at that. And for the first time in my life, I saw him cry. Quiet tears, rolling down the same cheeks that used to flush red when he was screaming at me. I was wrong, he whispered. I see that now. And God, a part of me wanted to believe it. I wanted to let those words patch the hole in me. But they didn't. They felt too small, too late. Like trying to put out a house fire with a water bottle. You don't get to fix it with 3 words, I said coldly. You don't get to burn me alive and then say I was wrong on your way out. That's not how this works. His breathing hitched, like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Maybe he couldn't. He just sat there, crumbling into himself. My stepmom peeked in from the kitchen, her eyes red. I realized then she'd probably been listening the whole time. I didn't care. I took a step back, closer to the door. My whole body was shaking, adrenaline tearing through me. I built a life without you, I told him. Everything I have, I earned on my own. No thanks to you. And you don't get to claim me now. You don't get to call me your son when you never treated me like one. He reached out a trembling hand, like he expected me to take it. I just stared at it, then at him. No, I said simply. And I walked out. When the screen door slammed shut behind me, I stood on the porch, chest heaving, trying to steady myself. It wasn't the closure I thought I'd get. It wasn't satisfying. It just hurt, like ripping open a scar. I didn't even realize until I was halfway down the block that my hands were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I didn't know if I'd ever see him again. And honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. But as I drove away from that house, I couldn't shake one thought. If that was the last conversation I ever had with my dad, was that enough? When I drove away from that house, my chest felt like it was caving in. I thought unloading everything I'd bottled up for years would feel like victory, like ripping off chains. Instead, it felt hollow, like screaming into a canyon and realizing the echo is the only thing that answers back. I pulled into a gas station about 15 minutes out of town, parked in the back corner, and just sat there. I couldn't even bring myself to pump gas. My hands were still shaking, so I lit a cigarette even though I hadn't smoked in years. Old habits sneak up when you're raw. That's when my phone buzzed. I thought it'd be my stepmom again, but it wasn't. It was Dylan. I hadn't heard from him since the day I left at 18. Not a text, not a call, nothing. His name flashing on my screen almost made me drop the cigarette. I stared at it for a long second before answering. Hello. My voice cracked. For a second, Silence. Then, it's me. His voice was deeper than I remembered, but it was him. You really showed up, huh? He said after a beat. Yeah, I muttered. Didn't expect to hear from you, though. He laughed, but it wasn't happy. It was sharp, bitter. Guess we're both full of surprises. There was another pause. I could hear him breathing, like he was pacing or trying to find the right words. Then he said, I heard what you said to Dad. My stomach dropped. You were there? I was upstairs, he said flatly. He wanted me to stay out of the way. But walls in that house are thin. I heard everything. I didn't know what to say. The idea of him listening while I unloaded years of pain, it twisted my gut. Finally, I asked, and what? You think I was lying? No, Dylan said quickly. You weren't lying. You were right. About all of it. He did hand me everything. He did break you to protect me. And I let him. That stunned me into silence. Dylan admitting that? The same Dylan who once strutted around in my cap and gown like he earned it? I didn't know if I wanted to scream or hang up. I should have stopped him, Dylan continued. That night, I knew it wasn't mine. I knew I didn't deserve it. But I let him do it anyway. Because it was easier to take it than to fight him. And you, his voice cracked. You paid the price for both of us. Hearing him say that hit harder than I expected. Because yeah, part of me hated him for it. But another part of me, the 18-year-old part, had always wanted him to see it. To finally admit the truth. So what now? I asked quietly. I don't know, he said. He's dying. And all I can think about is how he screwed both of us in different ways. He turned you into a ghost, and me into a coward. I didn't know what to do with that. For years, Dylan was the villain in my story, the golden child who got everything I never did. And now he sounded just as broken, just as angry, maybe even more lost. I'm not coming back there, I said firmly. I said what I needed to say. I don't blame you, Dylan replied. But I don't think I can stay either. Not after hearing you. Not after realizing how much of my life was built on him propping me up while tearing you down. The line went quiet for a minute. Just both of us breathing, both trying to process decades of damage. Then Dylan said something I never expected. Do you think there's a way we start over? Without him? Just you and me. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the ceiling of my car. The cigarette burned down between my fingers. I don't know, I admitted. I've hated you for a long time, Dylan. And I don't know if that goes away just because you finally admitted the truth. I get that, he said softly. But maybe it's worth trying. Because if we don't, then what was the point of any of it? I didn't have an answer. But something in me shifted, like maybe, just maybe, the story didn't have to end with both of us carrying our father's choices like a curse. We hung up not long after. No promises, no big declarations. Just a crack in the wall. That night, back in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. My dad's tears, Dylan's words, my own anger. For the first time in years, I didn't just feel abandoned. I felt torn between walking away forever or trying to salvage something out of the wreckage. Because here's the brutal truth. I may never forgive my dad. But Dylan? He's still my brother. And maybe, under all the resentment, I still wanted a brother. The question was, could I trust him now? Or would trying to rebuild just open another wound? The week after I saw my dad, and after Dylan called me, I couldn't think straight. Every day felt like a tug of war inside me. Half of me wanted to slam the door shut again, block them both, go back to my life and pretend none of it happened. The other half, well, it kept replaying Dylan's voice asking, do you think there's a way we start over? I didn't answer him then, because I didn't know. Truth is, I still don't. But the idea stuck with me, chewing at the edges of my thoughts. Then came the call. Tuesday night, my stepmom again. Her voice was quiet, almost careful. He's gone, she said. Just like that. No build-up. No softening. It happened this morning. I didn't say a word at first. Just sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, staring at the wall like it would give me the right response. Finally, I managed. Okay. She asked if I wanted to come to the funeral. I told her I'd think about it, then hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel much. Just this weird emptiness, like the ground shifted under me, but I stayed standing somehow. I didn't plan on going. I swore to myself I wouldn't. But on the morning of the service, Dylan texted me. I don't know if I can do this alone. And that's what got me. Not my dad. Not my stepmom. Dylan. So I went. Walking into that church felt like walking into a place I didn't belong. Faces from the past, neighbors, old family friends. looked at me with that mix of curiosity and judgment, like I was the prodigal son finally crawling back. I wanted to scream that I wasn't here for him. I was here for me. The casket sat at the front, closed. I didn't go near it. I couldn't. Instead, I slid into a pew near the back. A few minutes later, Dylan walked in and spotted me. He froze, then came over and sat down beside me without saying a word. For the first time in 10 years, we sat shoulder to shoulder. No pretending, no old roles, just two men who'd survived the same storm, scarred in different ways. The service dragged on, full of people talking about what a hard-working man my dad was, how much he loved his boys. Every word made me want to laugh, then scream. If love means tearing one kid apart to glorify the other, then yeah, he nailed it. When it was over, people lined up to give condolences. I slipped out before they could get to me, but Dylan followed. Outside, in the cold air, he finally spoke. "Thanks for coming." I shrugged. I wasn't here for him. "I know," he said, "but it still means something that you showed up." We stood there awkwardly for a while, the silence heavy but not unbearable. Then Dylan said, "I'm not going to make excuses for what I did, or what I let him do, but I don't want us to end up like him. Bitter, alone, angry at everything." I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't the cocky kid I remembered. He looked older, worn down, guilty. Maybe he finally saw the cost of being the favorite. "You've got a lot to prove," I said. "I know," he admitted, "and I will, if you let me." I didn't answer right away, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel the automatic urge to push him away. Over the next few weeks, we started small. Coffee once a week, texts here and there. At first, it was tense, like walking on a tightrope, both of us waiting for the other to snap. But slowly, the conversations got easier. We didn't dive into the past every time. Sometimes we just talked about sports, work, dumb movies, normal brother stuff, stuff we never got to have. I'm not saying it's perfect now. Far from it. I still carry the weight of what happened. I still wake up some nights replaying that night before graduation, hearing my dad's voice in my head. "You don't deserve this." But here's the thing, I did deserve it. And I see that now. That ceremony wasn't the end of my story. It was just the point where I had to start writing it myself. My dad never gave me the apology I wanted. Not really. But maybe I don't need it anymore. Because I've learned something he never could. I get to decide what kind of man I am. I get to choose if I carry the bitterness forward or if I put it down and move on. And Dylan? He's choosing too. He's trying. And for now, that's enough. So no, I didn't get to walk across that stage at 18. But at 28, I've built a life I can stand in proudly. No cap, no gown, just me, standing on my own 2 feet. And maybe that's the real graduation.